Okay, well, here's the 10 by 12 greenhouse. It's ready for filling up. As you can see, it's empty. So got pretty good space in here. I put the fisheye lens on there just so that you can see everything inside. Anyway, we're gonna get started on building some benches to put the hydroponic system on. Okay, so we don't have anything screwed together, anything done. Just got a couple pieces of wood down, and we're gonna do a quick run, see how it looks, and let's do it. Okay, so as you can see, got 11 buckets. They're all sitting good. I don't think that they're too crowded. I think that, you know, there's enough workspace on either side. Pretty much the back side is just going to be used for any kind of plumbing if we decide. The front side is also going to be used for plumbing. And then we just need to make sure to cover this pressure treated wood because I don't want any plants that are touching pressure treated wood. So we're going to cover that with a little polyurethane, and I think we're good to go. This can handle quite a bit of weight, so I think we'll be good with all the water and all the situation.
We're putting plastic sheets over the tables, and it's 6 millimeters, so the plants don't touch the pressurized wood.
Just in case it goes too fast in time lapse, anyway, we're just using a couple of these Simpson ties just to keep the two boards together. They shouldn't fall apart. There's not going to be too much weight on either side, but California and earthquakes. Just in case we get some tremors, these will stop them from at least falling on the floor. All right, well, we've got 22 buckets. I got 11 buckets on each side. They're all 4-gallon buckets. We got them off uline.com. They ended up coming in 24 hours. It was pretty quick. These are all food grade buckets. Remember to use food grade instead of just a regular bucket. You don't want leaching of any products into your food. So anyway, we've got 22 buckets and we're gonna start building the system. Pretty excited. All right, Jackson, go put the lids, boom. So we ended up grabbing the lids to the buckets. We were originally going to use the fancy square lids with the basket tops on them for hydroponics, except during this quarantine time, just no supply, unable. Some of the companies went out of business. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up popping holes in these and just putting 6-inch or 3-inch bucket baskets into the top. So we'll just cut them in and do it ourselves. All right, we talked about starting with the Dutch buckets. So in order to make a Dutch bucket, got your bucket, food grade, not gonna leach any chemicals into it, whatever size you choose. I went with a 4-gallon, ordered them off Uline like we talked about. Since I couldn't get the custom tops which come with a basket because of the quarantine process right now, I ended up ordering 6-inch baskets off of Amazon. I don't know, they're maybe about $1 a piece, $2 a piece. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and stencil a ring. Now to stencil the ring, you don't want to stencil the ring the same size as the pot because the pot will drop through. So there is a lip on the pot. You have to find something, doesn't matter what, could be your foam roller, but it ends up being that the foam roller fits exactly right onto the top there, which means the lip will catch. So I will use that as my stencil. So foam rollers can be used for more than just rolling your back. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the drill. I'm gonna pop holes into all of these buckets, and then I'll use the jigsaw to cut out the circles. Okay, so we had a bucket, got the lid, got the pots, made a circle or stencil, then we popped in a pilot hole with a drill. Then we used the jigsaw to cut out the top, and now it fits nice and flush, and we're ready to figure out our water level, and then we'll finish up all the tops, we'll finish up our water levels, and then we will begin the PVC process. Hey guys, okay, I'm back again, and today we're going to start putting together the deep water Dutch bucket system. So normally when you see a Dutch bucket system, you'll see a square bucket or you'll see a round bucket. Either way, it's a bucket, and you've got a hole down here. So you will see some form of PVC pipe for the drain coming out here. Now, using a siphon, that will give you a water level around this low. The problem is I'm going to be using these netting pots, and what I would like to do is have a deep water system with much more water in the bucket. These are about 4 inches deep, and if you see, when I drop that into here, this hole up here will allow the bottom inch or so to be into the net pot. When I throw this drainage tube in, that will then give me the ability to have a deeper water, more nutrients in it sitting, so that when these roots do grow all over the place in here, that'll give them much better nutrient uptake, and it'll also be able to work better at draining out the water from a higher level. Now, if you want to drain from a lower level, you can extend, instead of just having an elbow, which as you can see keeps the water level here, you can add a piece of PVC to go lower, and then that will also drain you down to a lower level if you'd like. The opposite way is staying with that same Dutch bucket system hole down here much lower, 1 or 2 inches off of the bottom, and then reversing that situation and making your PVC pipe come up to the top. The problem with that is I don't want any leaks or anything happening here at some point, and then all of my water draining out, and then all of these roots hanging in the air. So I'm going to attempt to use the net pot system and not use any guards or netting. I may decide to put a cover over the outtake here, but I'm not going to have a big netting sitting inside there. I want the roots to be free and to be able to be wherever they want to be in that solution. So let's get started. All right, so sizing out the pipe is also an issue. So I'm going to have a drain outtake that comes along the edge of this table here. So I would like my buckets to be in the center of the table, and that'll give me about 5 inches to come out and then down. And it'll also give me about I think it's about 8 inches down to the bottom here. So what I've done was I took 1/2 inch Schedule 40 PVC, made my 5 inch, and then I gave myself a 10 inch piece here. And what I did was I just stuck a 5/8 inch grommet around the end, and then I'll go ahead and pop that through this hole, and it's going to take a little bit of force to get them through, and that will allow the water to come out, siphon down into the drain. So let's get that going. Just really quickly, also some tools that you'll need. You'll need some way of cutting the PVC pipe. I just grabbed one of these Husky PVC pipe cutters. I think it was $8 at Home Depot. I've got a 1 inch drill bit, tape measure, and I find that instead of putting soap and oil and all these things on the grommets, which then ends up going into your solution, just use one of these to kind of push around the edge. All these grommets end up coming with, you know, the little double edge there. I don't know if you can see that, but this pushing on that, just kind of feed it all the way in, will pop it right through these buckets much easier, and then there's no chemicals. There's a real nice seal on there. So I'm gonna get to it. Okay, so I guess there are some people like me who haven't cut very much PVC. This is a PVC cutter. I figured I would just orient you to it really quick. Basically, it opens by popping it. Super simple. You just right through the tube. Super simple. I know there's saws and there's electrical stuff, but just if you're just doing a few little things, it's really nice and handy to have one of these things. You get your line or your mark or wherever you want it to be. I know this is how long I want my extension pieces to be. So you just kind of line it up. And it's as simple as just cutting right through. So very simple, very easy, and anybody can do that. Okay, the next part that we have to do is we have to get the drainage pipe, okay, which is going to go all the way along here, connected to the table. So before I mark out all of the spots, I'm actually going to fix it to the table, and then I'm going to mark the spots. That way I know exactly where they're going to be. So I'm going to use 2 inch galvanized tube straps, and that'll hold it right on. So now you can see that the drain spouts, the outtakes of each of the buckets, lines up perfectly with the top of the pipe. So now I'm going to go get a drill bit. I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes so that they can easily rest right into them, and then we will know exactly where they need to sit from now on. Now that we've got them drilled, I used a wood drill bit, as you noticed. There are pipe fitting drill bits, but basically I made the drill bit, made the holes, it's all good. I'm gonna just use a Dremel tool just to clean up the edges. You can use a file, sandpaper, scratch it on a rock, whatever you want, but I'm just gonna use a Dremel tool, clean up the edges, and then we should be good to go. So now that we've got all of the holes made and we've got the edges all cleaned up, remember, all of this debris is still inside this tube. So each one of these tubes I've blown out and cleaned out so that we don't end up plugging up the system later, because we're going to end up putting in smaller outtakes that are going to go into each of these buckets, and these little shavings will clog up the system. So this is going to get a little loud, but I'm going to use an air compressor and just blow it out. All right. So now that we have the ends all cleaned out, we can now get everything roughly lined up into each hole. And should be pretty well set up at this point. It's great. So the next phase is get the plumbing into the reservoir, and then we will work on the pump back out to. Okay, so the next part is getting the dirty water or outtake water out of these buckets into the reservoir. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a T-piece in. I'm not going to go to the terminal end like I was thinking at the beginning. I've got concrete blocks under here, and I don't want to try and make an elbow into another connector, down into another elbow. It's just going to be 4 or 5 pieces to get back into the reservoir underneath. This T-piece right here will actually let me just go about a foot straight down into the bucket. So that's probably what we're going to do. Let's get some T-piece on. So what I've done here is there is a couple marks where the T-piece is going to go. I've cut all the way into the join, and now I'm going to line up my cutter with the lines that I've made. There's one. There's two. Now this should allow me to get here and here. And fasten together. There's your T-piece. And don't forget to put on the end cap. So we went under 6 inches. That's approximately right here, right on the logo. So we're going to punch a hole through the top, and that's where it's going to go. The return water or dirty water coming back into this hole here. We're going to pop another hole in, and that will give us the space to run the line from the pump and also the cable or the electrical cord out. So how do you know how full your reservoir is if you don't come along every single day and pop it open? Also, the problem is with our system is there's not very much clearance under there. because I wanted to have a nice large cooler under there for my reservoir. And as you can see, you can't see through it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in a little empty to full meter. And basically it's very simple. We're just gonna take some 5/8 tubing, run it into a couple brass, I'll put the links below, brass connectors, so you've got one spacer to make through the side wall, you've got an elbow, and then just another vertical pipe tubing thread to a piping thread. So anyway, that's gonna end up going right through here, if you can see. And as the water goes down in the reservoir, then the water will also go down. The meter will go down here. So then we'll be able to just take quick looks and know where our water meter is, where our water level is, and it'll just make it easier for us. Just ran into a little bit of lady luck. I completely forgot or didn't even think about the outtake valve on these big coolers. So this is a Coleman cooler, and it has an outtake valve with some threading on it. And I've got a 5/8 inch coupling or extender, which is going to be the part that we were going to drill through the side here. I was going to stick this through, and then I was going to connect on to the elbow. Well, I just put this inside just to see what would happen, and it really snugs down. And when I torque on it, it twists right into there, and it's going to work perfectly. So this, with a little bit of caulking inside there, is going to save me drilling through the side piece, the side wall. So at a later date, that's going to prevent more leakage. So pretty cool. This is basically what we're going to do. This is the outtake. It's going to be coming right back in here like this. And hopefully, I can bore you with the whole thing, but the water is going to go down, and as it fills up, you should see right here, if you want to come in close, starting to tell us how much water is in the cooler. All right, so that's a super fast, easy way of getting to know how much is inside this thing without having to rip it out all the time and drive yourself nuts. So this should make it really easy to be able to see how much is in, decide how much we want to add to it. Also, we'll be able to get a sample. If you want to just turn this down here, put a sample in your cup, and then you'll be able to check out your pH and all of your nutrient levels. And then, we can just go ahead and refill, no problem. What we have now is we want to make the irrigation line feed into each bucket. So what I've decided to do was, originally I wanted to hang it along the top, maybe behind, but if you're actually working with something all the time, and there's tomatoes, and that's gonna be a pain in the butt. So what I think is the best is to keep everything right here, table level, that way you can just handle it and work with it, and I think that'll be better for me. So what we're gonna do is, on each end is gonna be exactly the same. There's going to be a elbow, which is gonna pop into each end, okay? So each of those ends are gonna have an elbow, which is gonna give us the opportunity to run down, out, around, or later in the future, do other things with it. On this end down here, I have a end cap on the elbow. So this elbow, these are Rainbird elbows and irrigation pieces. This is a Rainbird cap. So you just pop the cap into the end there, and that's the end of the line. So they hold on really, really well. I've had them at pretty good pressures too. So let me pop this one in here. Then I will pop the cap in. Okay. So the next part is, I'm going to go ahead and secure down all of the irrigation line in a row. Okay, so trying to get the system to be easy for you on a day-to-day basis, or easy for me on a day-to-day basis, is you've got a big reservoir down here and you can't see through it. We figured out the see-through part with the gauge to tell us how much is in there. But when we are adding water, or when we need to check the pump, or when we need to take it out, the problem is if you have all of these lines that are running really snug through these, top holes, pulling it out can actually jumble and disassemble things. So what I've done was I decided that we're going to put an elbow on the end here, another elbow just to keep it clean, and then we're going to run along from that elbow, okay, into this is a PVC adapter, compression adapter. So it goes from 0.70 tubing into a 1/2 inch coupling. And then what you do is you run another piece of your 1/2 inch PVC into that, like so, okay? And then you're able to shove it into this quick disconnect so that when you do the same thing on the other side, and you run in another, let's shove in another piece here while we're at it. Okay. There we go. So now what's going to happen is when it's time for us to do any maintenance or do whatever we want to do, you can just simply undo it. And then you can pull out what needs to be pulled out. You don't have to disrupt the whole system. So these are really, really interesting. I probably spent about $5, but when it comes to disconnecting things and messing up the ends, and sometimes these lines, even though everybody says that they don't leak, sometimes they leak. And the more that you manipulate them, it's just the same with everything else. If it's a washer, if it's a gasket, if it's plastic, if it's rubber, after a while, manipulating things and wiggling and torquing on things, it does cause them to break down. So the less that you mess with it, the better it'll be. Anyway, this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and stick this end on here as well, this elbow connector. It's kind of short, so you got to shove it in there kind of tight. Let me see if I can push it on the ground. And then I'm going to connect this one onto here to give us that 90-degree elbow that we were talking about. Okay. And then our quick disconnect will come under. Move the plastic out of the way. And I'm going to shove this one together. Okay. So now this whole assembly is under here, very clean, out of the way. And when it's time to run this into the tank, all we have to do is do a disconnect of the valve, of the union. It's called a PVC union. So there we go. So we've got our outtake, we've got our intake. Now I'm going to pop some holes along the lines into each bucket so that we can start running the fluid through the system. Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to go over, this is what I chose to use this time, just because it was real cheap on Amazon. If I can find the link, I'll throw it down there. It's just Vivo Sun submersible pump, puts out about 800 gallons per hour. I'm gonna be running 11 buckets on this side, and then simultaneously I'll be running also on the other side the same system. So for redundancy, I just went with 800. I know you can get up higher or lower, but what's really nice is on top of these, they have a real nice threading into a 5/8 inch top, and they're all adjustable. So there comes with 3 or 4 adjustable nozzles, and that will pop perfectly right in here. And you can throw a hose clamp on there if you want or not, but super easy, runs right in, not a big deal. The next part, or the final part actually, to getting the tubing set is, here's our pump inside the reservoir, okay? So it's going to be sitting there. Like we said, we just connected onto the irrigation tubing. And because I'm trying to run a straight line, you don't have to put in all these connections and cables if you don't, and connectors if you don't want to, but I really like the ability to run them straight, and it's kind of nice to have everything really easy accessible and easy to disconnect instead of having things loop. because what'll happen is if you just run the line or the irrigation hose straight down in without putting any connectors in, what's going to happen is it'll run down into this reservoir or into your reservoir, and basically the line is going to have enough tension on it to keep your pump all over the place. So your pump is going to go all over the place. I know that you can put little suction cups that come with these things, but the suction cup is not going to hold the tension of one of these lines pulling on it constantly. And then you'll have more water in your reservoir underneath your pump, and then you can also, you know, suck up other things that you don't want to be sucking up. You want it to be nice and flat the way that the pump was designed. So that's what we'll do, is get this through here. Also, your power cable needs to be coming out and easily accessible. And take an elbow, shove the elbow right down on there, and that gives you a nice flat pump on the inside, easily accessible. And again, just to remind you, you know, we put the disconnect on here. So if you want to do a quick disconnect to pull this in and out, you can do that just like this to pull it free instead of moving this while this is all under here and finally locked down. That will probably be the best, quickest, and also best looking system to keep it just clean for you. Real simple. This is just a little popper tool. It'll pop the holes into the irrigation lines. So we're gonna pop one for each bucket. Something I like to do is I like to be able to work with one bucket at a time, or I like to be able to shut off certain buckets. Say I want to clean this bucket and I want everything to keep going. I don't want to have to shut off the system or pinch the line. What I do is I take one of these little shut off valves, and each bucket has its own valve. So everything can be independent in the system, and that way you will be able to clean, change, stop, or run the ones that you want. So this is 1/4 inch tubing, which has a 1/4 inch shut-off valve, which can poke right into the 1/2 inch irrigation tubing. And we'll pop them all in and see how it goes. All right, well, it's the moment of truth. So let's plug her in, see if it all works. Kind of excited. So, oh, I hear it. I hear it going. So, all right, she's going. She's going. All right, it's going all the way along. Very cool. So each one is going, and they're filling, and then they're gonna drain. Anyway, I'm pretty excited, so I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed the video and the process. Like, subscribe, hit that little notification bell. You know, I've had a lot of fun doing this. The hardest part